welcome everyone to another biology class of Fun Scholar. Today I, Shushmita ma'am, am going to discuss another chapter from Standard 8 under CBSE board. And the name of the chapter is there on the screen, and that is Reproduction in Animals. So in this chapter, basically we will know about the process of asexual and sexual modes of reproduction, and then how different categories of animals reproduce through different means, and the final look will be particularly focused on human beings, because we know the process of reproduction is the most complicated in case of human beings as compared to other species. And also, since we are Homo sapiens sapiens, so obviously our interest will be the highest in knowing that how our own system of reproduction works, and with that only we will actually have the chapter under our discussion. So with that in vision, let's start. So these are the topics that we are going to deal, particularly sexual reproduction, then reproductive system of male and female, then development of zygote, process of fertilization, and also asexual reproduction. So the first thing is to know about the process of reproduction itself. That what is this process of reproduction? So if I break down these two words, re means again, and production means making or manufacturing. Manufacture, right? So manufacturing something again, that is the actual meaning of reproduction. Now manufacturing what? Manufacturing the offsprings or the progenies. Means the children of the next generation. Manufacturing them or producing them. Why? And again means because reproduction is a continuous process. It goes on and on in each and every generation. So our parents came from our grandparents. We came from our parents. Now later on we'll give birth to our offsprings or our children. So like these, and it will continue along generations. So that is why, since the process is repeating itself time and again, and the process is about manufacturing of the offsprings or production of the progenies, so together it is termed as reproduction. Now let's watch the video regarding reproduction, and then we'll discuss more on this topic.
Aren't immortal. They eventually die. So who will make sure that organisms will still exist in nature? A simple and efficient system in us makes sure that the species which is perpetuated is continued in nature even after we die. I am referring to the reproductive system in us. And not only us, but the system in all the animals, plants, and the lower unicellular organisms is extremely important. It makes sure of the continuation of species. So where do we begin? We need to first understand the process of reproduction. It is important for us to know how exactly this process of reproduction is carried out. So let us begin with learning about the process of reproduction in this video. How will we define the process in this word? Let us define the word itself. The word "re" means again, and production means making. So can we define the process as making something again? Absolutely. And what is being made next question that pops up in our mind is that will all the organisms reproduce in the same manner? Will unicellular bacteria and huge whales reproduce in a similar way? Absolutely not. If there are several differences in the body structures and other life processes of all organisms, then how can the reproduction pattern be the same? This gets us to the two major types of reproduction patterns. The first type is followed by the unicellular organisms. Now, since it is just one single cell that carries out all the activities, it is obvious that even reproduction will be done by the same tiny creature. So this type is the asexual reproduction. In this type, no specialized cells or the sex cells or the gametes will be produced inside the body. The single cell will divide in two to form daughter cells. And it's done. On the other hand, in case of multicellular organisms, the body has specialized cells or the gametes which fuse to form the new individual. First type is referred to as asexual reproduction. We will learn about the first type, that is the asexual reproduction, in the upcoming video.
So from this video, we have got the basic idea of reproduction, and also we have got to know the importance of the process of reproduction. As they have correctly mentioned that reproduction process is essential to maintain the continuity of species. Going through the process of reproduction, we give birth to the organisms of the same species again and again, and that is how we actually ensure that a particular species doesn't go under extinction. And in this way, I can say that the biodiversity is also maintained. The variety of species, the total number of the species on this earth is maintained with the help of this process called reproduction. Now, the next thing that we are going to learn about is modes of reproduction, which are of two types: sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. We know that in case that only one parent is involved in the process of reproduction, it is called asexual mode of reproduction. And in this asexual mode of reproduction, there is no production of male or female gametes and then the fusion of those gametes. So nothing of that sort is required, because here only one parent or only one individual is going through the process of reproduction to give birth to the offsprings. On the contrary, sexual mode of reproduction requires two different types of gametes from two different sexes, that is male gamete and female gamete. Male gamete and female gamete, and not only the production but also the fusion of these two gametes in the process called fertilization in order to give rise to the zygote, and that will eventually become a new individual. So in sexual reproduction, all these conditions are required, but in case of asexual reproduction, nothing of that sort is essential. Also, since only one parent is involved, so the genetic material of that parent only is passed on to its next generation or the offspring. Hence, the offspring or the progeny or the child, whatever you say, is the exact clone. So we can say in case of asexual reproduction, clones are produced, means the offspring is genetically the same to the parent. There is no scope of variation. But on the contrary, in case of sexual reproduction, since there is the merge of male and female gamete, so the genetic material is also getting merged, and hence there is ample scope of variation in the offspring. Now, not all variations are actually beneficial. According to Charles Darwin, we know about the nature of survival of the fittest in nature. So it depends which type of variation is supported by nature. But we get many types of variations in case of sexual mode of reproduction, which we cannot get to see in case of asexual mode of reproduction. We will know more about all these things, but first let us see what is this sexual and sexual mode of reproduction in detail one by one. So first we'll watch this video of sexual reproduction in humans. So we'll start with us first of all, that means the humans. Sexual reproduction, how it takes place in case of humans. So let's watch this video and try to understand.
Which method of reproduction is seen in human beings? Do human beings need both sexes for reproducing their own kind? Or is a baby born with the help of a single germ cell? Now we know it's not possible with a single germ cell. Humans reproduce sexually and require both the male and the female parent. But when are humans capable of reproducing their own kind? Can they reproduce at any point in time in their lives? No, we humans can reproduce only after our reproductive systems have matured. And when does that happen? As we know, a baby grows into adolescence and then gradually into adulthood. This growth is characterized by various bodily changes. During our early years, our height and weight increase, we acquire teeth, and so on. All these can be classified under the general process of growth. But in our early teenage years, new changes occur in our body which are not as simple as these ones. Why do these bodily changes occur? A human being is not born with a mature reproductive system. As one grows older, the reproductive system starts maturing. Both girls and boys begin to mature between the ages of 10 to 14 years, and girls usually undergo sexual maturity earlier than boys. What characterizes sexual maturation? What are the specific bodily changes that help identify the onset of puberty? As far as the girl's body matters, the changes are seen in the breast development. We can also observe hair growth in the underarms and the genital area. What do you think are the other visible changes one observes in a growing girl? Yes, there is a sudden growth in height. This is the growth spurt characteristic of puberty. But the main indicator of completed sexual growth is the menstrual cycle. What does this word mean? Well, it is the first working of the developed reproductive system in the female body. We will study more about this in our later video. Let us see the indicators of sexual maturation in males. What changes can you observe on the face of a schoolboy as he advances in his years? The facial hair, of course. The beard and the mustache, as we call them, are sure indicators of sexual maturation. What are the definitive changes in the voice of a boy? The voice of a maturing boy deepens, and we call this as voice breaking. The voice of a boy slowly breaks into the deeper voice. This usually happens after a growth spurt in voice. What is the growth spurt in voice? Similar to the females, the males too undergo a sudden growth in their body stature, and in addition to this, there is a considerable increase in muscle mass as well. At the same time, the penis and the testicles also grow in watch the next video.
So here mainly they have mentioned that how we can ascertain that an individual is sexually active from the childhood till the adulthood. So what is the stage or what are the symptoms by observing which we can understand that be it a girl or a boy is now reproductively mature enough to give rise to the offsprings. So in case of girls, they have stated about the onset of menstrual cycle, and the menstrual cycle, the first menstrual cycle is termed as menarche, which is considered as an indicator of reproductive maturity in case of females, right? Because onset of menstrual cycle denotes the release of a mature ovum from either of the ovaries every month, and ovum is the female gamete or the germ cell. So if the female body has started to produce this female gamete or germ cell, so that means the body is now ready for the process of fertilization, which can take place if the ovum meets with another mature sperm. And the sperm, in case of humans, if sperm is the male gamete, so it is also released from the male reproductive system when the male body is reproductively active, just like in case of the females. So we say there is a period in adolescence when they both females and males attain this reproductive maturity, and that stage in adolescence in which the individuals attain reproductive maturity is termed as puberty. The external symptoms they have talked about, the general symptoms are increase in height, then the growth of the pubic hair and the body hair, and the particular physical changes occurring in case of the females is the broadening of the hips, then development of the breast. In case of the boys, the particular physical changes include the deepening of the voice, then the buildup of a muscular structure. So all these things indicate that the individual or the child who was till now not so much reproductively active, they are going to attain puberty stage. So we have till now known that sexual reproduction, it is a type of reproduction in which both male and female gametes are involved, and these male and female gametes will fuse together in the process of fertilization to form zygote. This zygote is a single cell which will continuously undergo cell division, or I can say mitotic cell division, which is also known as equal cell division, where the cell number increases like 2 from 1 to 2, 2 to 4 means it goes on increasing as double. So therefore this is mitotic or equal cell division, because here the genetic material of the parent cell is equally divided into two daughter cells, which is formed in the subsequent stages. So these zygote actively undergoes mitotic cell division to form embryo, and then embryo also starts to develop the other organs and the organ systems to become the fetus. And the fetus, when it matures, in case of humans, at the end of almost 9 months, so then it is delivered as the baby. So that is the entire process overview for sexual reproduction in case of human beings. Now, for this sexual reproduction to be successful in case of human beings, obviously this is understood that we need the help of two systems which are very much different from one another. One is the male reproductive system and another is the female reproductive system. The male reproductive system, as I said earlier, will produce sperm as the male gamete, while the female reproductive system will produce the ovum or the egg as female gamete. So the main parts or the figures of the male and the female reproductive systems are given over here. You can refer to that what are the structures present. We'll discuss both of them one by one now. So first we'll discuss about male reproductive system. So what are the parts of the male reproductive system and what are their functions, that we'll know now. So first let's watch this video.
In this lesson, we will look at the male reproductive system in detail. What are the main parts that make up the male reproductive system? The male reproductive system is made up of two distinct parts. What is the purpose of having two different parts? One part of the male reproductive organ produces the germ cells, while the second part serves as a pathway for their transport. What is the other name for the male germ cell? They're called sperms, and they are formed in this part here. Let us look at the different parts of the male reproductive organ. This part here, which produces the sperms, is called as the testis. There are two of them, and together are referred to as the testes. But they are enclosed in this bag-like structure made up of skin. They are placed outside the male body along with this elongated structure here on the penis. Why do you think these are placed outside the body and not within? The penis is required for establishing sexual contact with the female body, but why are the testes outside the body? The answer is quite simple. The sperm production takes place at a lower temperature than the normal body temperature. The normal body temperature will not aid sperm production, which is why the testes are placed outside the male body. But how are the testes connected to the body then? Where do they get their nutrition from? With that, let us zoom in and see the structure of the testis. Testis is almost a bean-shaped oval organ with a mass of flesh placed halfway on its body. This is the place where the sperms are produced inside the testis. However, the sperms produced here aren't mature. They need some more time to mature, and until then, they are stored in the epididymis. Which part of the epididymis here? This blob of flesh here on the top of the testis is called the epididymis. The epididymis is a mass of tubes which is coiled and stacked in place. It is made up of three parts: the head, the body, and the tail. What happens in the epididymis? Immature sperm enters this part of the bone once it's stored in the tail part of the epididymis. How does it manage to find itself outside the penis? The testis, though outside the body, is well connected to the body. How is this possible? There is a pipe-like surrounded by several blood capillaries and arteries, which together help to provide nutrition to the testes. Without this, the testis would be cut out from the body and wouldn't be able to carry out its function of producing sperms. What is this tube called? It is called the ductus deferens or the vas deferens. What happens once the sperm moves out of the epididymis? Well, it just doesn't go out of the body, it is stated as now. It has a long path to traverse and several things will be added along the way. We will look at this path in our next video.
This was half of the explanation regarding the male reproductive system. The rest of we'll obviously watch in the next video, but as of now, let us first understand some of the basic things that we have watched in the video. First, we have understood the site of production of male gamete, site of production of sperm, which is the male gamete, is the pair of testes. And testes are situated outside the body in order to support sperm production, and they have already mentioned that testes require lower body temperature. Testes actually require 2 degrees Celsius less than body temperature to produce sperm. Almost 2 degrees Celsius less than body temperature. And due to this reason, the testes are located outside the body in the lower abdominal cavity just behind the penis. And as they have stated that they are formed inside the seminiferous tubules. These seminiferous tubules are located inside each testis. So, seminiferous tubules is the actual site inside the pair of testes where sperms are produced. And after just production, when the sperms are produced as a result of meiotic cell division or meiosis. This is known as unequal cell division. What happens both in case of production of male gamete or female gamete, means I am talking about sperm and ovum respectively, both of them are produced as a result of meiosis or meiotic cell division, which is also known as unequal cell division, because the mother cell, in case of the sperm it is the spermatocyte, and in case of the ovum it is the oocyte. So this oocyte and spermatocytes, they are diploid in nature, containing 46 number of chromosomes, which is the total number of chromosomes present in each cell of the human body. But when from these mother cells the gametes or the germ cells are produced, then the number of chromosome is halved in the germ cell. So when I can say that in spermatocyte, which is a diploid, the number of chromosome is 46, but sperm, which is the male germ cell or male gamete, it is haploid, here it is 23. Right? And this is actually very much essential in order to ensure that when the male germ cell and the female germ cell will fuse together in the process of fertilization, then again 23 plus 23 equal to 46 number of chromosomes will be restored in the cell. First the single cell, obviously the zygote, and then the all the cells of the embryo, and obviously in the body of the new individual produced. So this is a very unique magical way that how in the germ cell the chromosomal number is halved, and again when the both the germ cells from two different sexes fuse together, then they restore the total number of chromosomes, as in case of our species, that is Homo sapiens sapiens. Now, as I was telling about the seminiferous tubules, now after just being produced inside the seminiferous tubules, then there are some of the cells inside the seminiferous tubules which are known as Sertoli cells. These cells actually nourish the recently or the spermatids which are produced after the process of meiosis, until and unless they are mature enough to be released as sperms. So therefore, after just production, the spermatids are embedded in the Sertoli cells, the heads. We know that in case of sperm, we'll deal with the structure of sperm subsequently, but as of now, just remember that sperm has got three regions. This is the head, then it is the neck region, and then the tail region. Now, in some places, instead of the neck region, it is also mentioned the middle piece. The middle piece. But whatever it is, the head region of the spermatids, from one spermatocyte, four sperms are produced as a result of meiosis or meiotic cell division. And when the spermatids are first produced, which are all haploid in nature, and then they remain embedded with their heads embedded in the Sertoli cells until and unless they are mature enough to be released from the seminiferous tubules as sperms. And then they are released where? Into a coiled tube which is present behind this seminiferous tubules, which is the epididymis. And then the parts of the epididymis, the head, body and the tail that they have mentioned, they are there. So sperms travel through that in order to get mature and after being released from the Sertoli cells. So the main parts of the male reproductive system are mentioned, that is the pair of testes, then penis and two sperm ducts, but they are the broad categorization. But apart from that, we have many parts just like the vas deferens, then we have many glands also whose secretions help in the lubrication as well as maturation of the sperm and also to maintain the vitality of the sperm. So many glands are there like prostate gland, seminal vesicle, bulbourethral or Cooper's gland. So all these glands help to ensure that the passage of sperm from the male reproductive system is smooth. Then the sperms get enough nutrition to remain viable until and unless it reaches the female reproductive tract, and also that the sperms shouldn't dry out and also die in the while it is being passed on through the passages of the female reproductive system. So millions of sperms are produced by the testes, and in case of males they start producing the sperms from the onset of puberty and it continues until the lifetime. But the thing is that the amount of production will definitely decrease over time in the old age, but it is not stopped abruptly. But in case of females, the reproductive stage actually ranges from the menarche to menopause, because after that there is no more ovum or eggs left in either of the ovaries to be released, and hence after that the reproductive stage of the females come to an abrupt stop. So that is the major difference between female and male reproductive system, that the female reproductive system is active up to a certain age, but the male reproductive system will remain active throughout the lifetime. So now we'll watch another half of this male reproductive system in this video, and let's see and understand that what happens after it reaches the vas deferens, that means the tube which is the only connection between the testes to the interior of the abdominal cavity in case of the male reproductive system. What is the next story? Let us watch and understand.
In our previous video, we saw how the sperms after maturation are stored in the tail of the epididymis. What happens when the sperms need to be carried to the outside of the body? The sperms will move from the tail and into the vas deferens. The vas deferens will almost circle around the urinary bladder. And once it begins to descend, it will move through a vesicle called the seminal vesicle. This vesicle is one of the three accessory glands that adds fluids to the sperms that are moving through the vas deferens. What does the vesicle secrete? As we know, the sperms need nourishment and energy to move. Seminal vesicle secretes a fluid that provides sugar to these motile sperms. It makes up about 70% of the fluid that comes out of the urethra. After the vas deferens emerges out of the seminal vesicle, it joins the urethra. What is the urethra? It is the tube that emerges out of the urinary bladder. This tube will now move through the prostate gland. Do you know what the prostate gland does? The fluid it secretes acts as a protector for the sperm. Protects the sperm? How? The sperm cannot survive in harsh acidic conditions. Thus, the fluid of the prostate gland neutralizes the pH of the vagina, where the sperms will be deposited eventually. They also provide motility to the sperms and help them survive for a longer period in the vaginal tract. This constitutes about 25% of the seminal fluid. The last glands the sperms will move through are called as the bulbourethral gland, which is also called as the Cooper's gland. What does this gland add to the seminal fluid? It adds fluid that will neutralize the acidity in the urethra created by the urine passage. It also lubricates the tube moving through the penis to enable easy ejaculation of sperms. It makes up the least percentage in the seminal fluid, but it is very instrumental in protecting the sperm. Now that the sperms are ready to be ejaculated, the reflex action of the nervous system leads to inflow of blood and the veins close. The pressure will shoot up and lead the penis to become erect. Once the veins open up, the pressure is relaxed and the penis will return to its normal size. This process is important to penetrate the female vagina and aid the sperms to move upwards inside the vagina to fertilize the female germ cell. By now, we know how the male reproductive system works. In our next lesson, we will study the mechanisms of the female reproductive system.
Now, let's discuss the next part of the story. So, as you have watched that after it reaches the vas deferens, it will pass through the seminal vesicle. The first gland to add its secretion is the seminal vesicle. And as you can recapitulate, seminal vesicle will add 75%, it will account 75% of the fluid part that is added along with the sperm. So this is a sugary fluid which will provide the energy, because sperm will have a lot of mitochondria which will break down this sugar and then will release the energy, and this energy will be utilized in the motility of the sperm. So actually it will provide the food for carrying out the respiration process, and then keeping, as I said earlier, keeping the sperm viable until and unless it reaches the female reproductive tract and merges with the female germ cell. So this one is the first secretion. Then we have the secretion from the prostate gland, which constitutes 25% of the semen which is produced or which is ejaculated, and it mainly protects the sperms by neutralizing the pH of the vagina or of the female reproductive tract. Now, the vagina of the female tract or reproductive unit is that it is essential so that the bacterial infection cannot grow, but it is not the conducive environment for the sperm to remain viable. Hence, the prostate gland secretion neutralizes the pH so that it can stay in the or survive in the female reproductive tract for 2 to 3 days until and unless the chance of fertilization increases. If by that time it meets with an ovum, then obviously fertilization will take place. And finally, it will pass through the Cooper's gland or bulbourethral gland, which will help in neutralizing the pH of the urethra. So just like the vagina of the female reproductive tract, the urethra of the male reproductive tract is also acidic for the same reason, that is to prevent bacterial growth and infection. But in order to neutralize that, so that again during passage through the urethra, the semen or the sperms can remain viable. So Cooper's gland secretion helps in doing that. Now, I said before going into the video that the major difference between female and male reproductive system is that female reproductive system is not active throughout the lifetime, while male reproductive system is active to produce sperms from puberty throughout the lifetime of the males. Another difference is that in case of female reproductive system, there are two different passages. One is for the passage of urine and another is for the passage of the menstrual blood, that is the vagina, and but there the urethra is positioned above the vagina. But in case of the male reproductive system, the penis is the only passage for both the urine as well as the semen. So the penis acts as the, and that is why the acidic nature of the urethra needs to be neutralized with the help of the secretion from the Cooper's gland. So that is, and there is single passage, and that is the reason the vas deferens actually will merge with the urethra, so that the all the sperms along with the secretions can come out of the penis. So I can say overally that sperms plus secretions from these three glands, that means seminal vesicles, prostate and Cooper's glands, together will make the semen, which is ejaculated out of the body of the males while erection. So therefore, and one more thing, as they have said, that erection is supported both by the nervous stimulation, and then the veins actually they contract, and therefore the muscles in the penis they help in the erection of the, or the erectile motion of the penis for ejaculation of this semen. So this is the story of the male reproductive system, from the production of the sperms till the ejaculation of the semen. Now, talking of the structure of the sperm, I already mentioned earlier that we will deal with the structure of the sperm subsequently, and here it is. Sperms are produced inside the testes, and particularly I already mentioned in the seminiferous tubules of inside the testes of male reproductive system. It is the male gamete, which is quite small. Actually, it is the smallest cell in the human body, and each sperm has three basic parts called the head, the middle piece and the tail. The tail has got a lot of mitochondria, as I said, in order to break down the sugar provided by the secretions of the seminal vesicles, and then produce energy in the form of ATP and utilize it to move out towards the female reproductive tract for fertilization. So the tail of the sperm provides motility, which is essential to swim along the female reproductive tract to reach the egg cell. Now we'll have a look into the sperm structure. First we'll watch this.
This is the structure of the human sperm in 3D. And here we are looking at the longitudinal section of the human sperm. The different regions are labeled numerically. Let's understand them one by one. Primarily, the sperm is divided into three parts: the head region, the neck region, and the tail region. In the outer covering, we have the plasma membrane of the sperm. And on the top, we have the acrosome, a structure in the top of the head of the sperm, which contains enzymes for fertilization and penetrating the outermost layer of the egg. Then in the head region, we have the nucleus containing the chromosomal material, which is suspended in the matrix of the human sperm cell. Then we have the neck region and the middle section, which contains a number of mitochondria needed as an energy source for swimming. That means it provides the sperm with enough energy to swim and enter the female reproductive system, and then bring about fertilization when it meets the ovum. And thus we have learned about the structure of the human sperm.
I hope now you have got a clear idea about the structure of the male reproductive system. So this is the epididymis, the coiled tube which carries the sperms after being released from the seminiferous tubules, then the urethra which is the common passage for both urine and the semen, then penis head which is also known as glans penis, about which you will obviously learn in higher class. This is known as glans penis, the head of the penis. And then the testicles within which the sperms are produced, erectile tissue, the entire penis is made up of erectile tissue which on stimulation becomes erect and helps in ejaculation of the semen. Vas deferens, the only connection between the testes outside the abdominal cavity to the interior, that means carrying the sperms inside to get the secretions and become nourished from the all the glands of the male reproductive system. Then the three glands, seminal vesicle, prostate and the bulbourethral glands. So this is the overall view of or the diagram of the male reproductive system of humans. We'll have a look into the simulation of the male reproductive system. So here you can see this is how the male reproductive system will look. The anatomy of the male reproductive system in the longitudinal section, this is the frontal view, and here this is the side view. It is the, we can say, the dorsal view. So here you can see that this is the tube of connection, the vas deferens which is arising from each of the testes and carrying the sperms inside the abdominal cavity. This is the urinary bladder, and these are the glands from which the sperms will receive all the secretions to get nourished. So see the enlarged top portion of the head of the penis, the glans penis, and this is how it will look from top. These are a pair of the Cooper's glands. You can see the two dots over here. So how it looks. Now, if I go into the explanation part, you can see over here the different parts of the the male reproductive system, the vas deferens, the seminal vesicle, the prostate gland, all those things are mentioned and they are given over here so that you can get a clear view of how the male reproductive system actually looks in 3D. Also, you have over here the accessory glands associated with male reproductive system. This is a very good simulation that we can definitely watch in order to understand the process of production and then ejaculation better. This is the testis, seminiferous tubules inside it, the coil tube behind the each testis, the sperms which are being produced in the seminiferous tubules. Sperm will travel from the epididymis through vas deferens. epididymis will join with the vas deferens and will carry it to the ampullary region where it will receive the secretion of seminal vesicle, then the ejaculatory duct which will join with the urethra, the common passage, and pass through prostate gland, and finally it will be ejected outside the body when the penis will be erected. So this is how the system actually works. So I hope that you got to understand about the male reproductive system. I have tried to explain in as much detail as possible, and if you have any queries, so do comment below and let us know. So we'll keep the lecture up to this portion only. We will discuss the female reproductive system and the other subsequent topics in the next part of the lecture. Thank you so much for staying connected with us, and stay tuned for the next parts. By then, take care. Thank you so much. I am Shushmita ma'am signing off for the day. Bye.